am lost.
Okay, finally got that part.
Yeah.
All
You'll be
right.
gone on vacation.
Hold on, it'll come up in a moment here.
How much of a moment?
A moment of silence.
Call Ken.
So much for your
I can
perfect
see it, I
record.
just can't seem to tap.
There we
Hey,
go.
we're getting close. Now you just gotta
Okay.
do present.
Slideshow now.
Yeah.
There we are.
Ooh.
Well done.
Is that it?
Yep.
That's it.
And do you see yourselves over on the side?
I see you. Yeah, sure.
Got it. Okay. Well, we'll just live with that then. So welcome to the Rotary Club of Sebastopol Sunrise January 12th meeting. I was happy to be away, and I'm sure you were all happy for me to be away. Did you have a nice vacation?
Lovely.
Good.
No vacation. We
And
had Dan with us.
I tuned in. My screen was dark. That's because I was in a hotel room halfway between LA and here, and had a very nice time. Lori, darling, let's hear the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay, everybody face the flag and put your hand over your heart. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Lori, and thank you all. Okay. And our greeter, Anna Booker, thank you for being there, saying hello to us.
Hey, Anna.
My pleasure.
We'll greet you.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Anna.
Thank you.
Hi, Kathy.
And John Greck, a thought for the day.
I'm caught by surprise on that one. Okay.
Yeah, there was an email, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, my thought for today is that it seems that the lessons young people are learning has a lot in common with injustices of the past. I realize that there's not much of an injustice here, but I've been thinking about how students used to learn about obedience and discipline, and now they're learning about grassroots organizing and thinking about where they fit in and what they'll accept and what they won't. And I have a lot of respect for what they're trying to do, I guess. And so my thought is, I've talked to a lot of older people who have said, this is a complete waste of taxpayer dollars and kids shouldn't be, leaving classroom. They should learn the lessons of democracy, whatever. But my thought for the day is not so simple. I think there's a lot going on that parallels a lot of movements in history. And I think students have learned some different lessons than maybe we learned in the 1950s or 80s or different time periods. So that's my thought for the day.
We're pretty good for winging it.
Yep, thank you.
Well done, John. Thank you. And that is a good and useful thought. Well, I'll carry it through my day. I'm sure others will. Okay. Do we have visitors and guests I cannot see? Anybody out there? 3, 2, 1. Next slide. Whoops. And it's time to, wait a minute, we didn't do our song. Something's wrong with this.
Uh-oh.
Well, hey,
Go.
Joe, lead us
I'm
in a
here.
song. The slide will
Wave
show
your
up
hands
Sunday.
when you're leading us.
Okay. Just was on a nice road trip up to Portland. Realized what a beautiful country we've got, especially that 650-mile stretch between Sebastopol and Portland. So a little of This Land Is Your Land as I traveled along the highway. As I was walking that ribbon of highway, I saw a bogey that ended the skyway. I saw the lonely, that golden valley. This land is you and me. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the redwood to the forest, to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was you and me.
Thank you, Joe. That's always amazing when we sing in unison. I think about it all day. I don't know if Gail Thomas is signed on. I emailed her, but if you want to reach out to Gail Thomas, today is her birthday. Yeah, how about that? And there are only 3 shopping days till my birthday. And this will be a nice round number for me. I'll be 70 as of the 15th of January. And I would point out modestly that after I was born, they made a holiday out of my birthday.
Right.
Just saying.
Martin Luther-
Celebrated on Monday. I think that's a little weird. I'm thinking of moving my birthday to Mondays. So Charlie Judson, your membership anniversary. You have been with us since 2013.
And if I do that math right, it comes out to 9 years, I believe. And on that Monday hike, excuse me, on that Monday hike, David mentioned to me that my anniversary was coming up. So this year I had a chance to kind of think about what I might say ahead of time. And a couple of things came up. And I had originally planned on joining Rotary for a few years and getting involved in some community work and then moving on to other things. And here we are 9 years later. Rotary, the big Rotary is an organization that I really admire, as does pretty much everyone. I don't personally go to the barricades to get good things done around the world. But of course, Rotary does that. And so being involved in our little club here on a local level allows me to feel a sense of participation in what Rotary accomplishes around the world, which is pretty amazing in many ways. A second thing is that I made friends in Rotary in our club here. Rotary clubs seem to attract genuinely committed people, and there's a lot of them in this club, and I enjoy hanging out with people like that, and maybe some of that which I admire in others in the club rubs off on me, and I thank you for that. But anyway, here we are 9 years later. I'm still hanging out with my friends and my Sunrise Rotary family, and I thank you, y'all.
Thank
Wow.
you.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you, Charlie.
We're lucky to have you, and there's so many things that you do that have you up on the ramparts and making things happen for us. Well, this is a happy and sad picture for me. Darlene, are you on here? I know she's out there somewhere. She said she would be here, but look at this beautiful house in Cool, California, the new residence of Darlene Brazil, longtime member, somebody we love. And she moved to Cool, California, which made Nancy Wilson very, very, very happy. And the two of them, I don't know what it's going to be like. They're going to tear up that town. She bought a place. It looks just beautiful. Darlene, some of you might know, was my immediate neighbor for the last 9 years, and we're certainly missing her. But there she is, and she's happy with that. Eric will catch up with her pretty soon. He's looking for a job with the Corps of Engineers, if you've got any jobs. And Sanderlings, PJ.
Hello.
What's about Sanderlings?
Well, Ellie and I do some citizen science on 2 different beaches once a month. And we chart everything that's alive, and we count them and identify them and do things like that. But this is a special bird, very small, maybe about 3 inches, black legs, a bill about as big as its head. And it's a group bird, and it loves to be looking around for flies. So, and then pecking around at the, you'll see it. I know Kathleen has seen them a lot right on the shoreline where they're dipping their bills, so to speak. So these are a beautiful bird to watch, and you'll see them in huge flocks flying around very fast. And you go, wow, what was that? Well, when they stop, take a look and you'll see these beautiful little birds here. This is Doran Beach, by the way.
Gorgeous, and thanks for that volunteering. Whoops, I missed something. Hey, Jerry, sorry I didn't warn you, but can you give us a vocabulary lesson?
This is a murmuration. Birds, I think it might be two different kinds of, wait, I might be me. Oh, okay. I was on a walk at the Sears Point, actually now the San Pablo Bay National Wildlife Refuge. And 6 years ago, they breached the levee that was over 100 years old and flooded the former Dixon Ranch and creating a new wetland. It's, if you go down Highway 37 instead of Lakeville Highway, instead of turning left or right on the 37, if you just go straight and keep walking, you get to this wetland area. Anyway, these birds, fly in a flock like that, and they kind of move in and out and swirl around. It's fabulous to watch.
Murmuration. Can you spell that for us?
M-U-R-M-U-R-A-T-I-O-N.
Ellie, little
Can you put it in a sentence?
Downy. And if you don't mind me chiming in, I don't know if it got mentioned, but Sonoma Land Trust is the organization that helped to create this, and it continues to work out there to do restoration work in the Baylands, and they're doing other properties as well, of course, but this is a place where they have had a direct impact in our county.
Yeah, there's a video online, a YouTube video of when they breached the levee. There were, maybe 100 or more people watching it. It's just absolutely inspiring to watch the bay water flood into this land and put it back to its creating the wetland that it was, historically. And more to come.
Lovely, thank you. And hey, Bob, I see you in the picture. Tell us about this.
Well, we have Dewey Watson to thank for this. This was up at Bishop Ranch, and as someone mentioned, I don't think you could go any higher and not see any vineyards. I mean, it was Bishop Ranch is only about 300 acres, but it took us about 5 hours to get up and back. And one of the more interesting things is we lost PJ for a while, PJ and Peanut. So
Yeah, they were both considering who was going to eat the other.
Yeah, apparently. And then we saw Peanut, and so we thought, oh, okay, well, at least he made it. So
well, it was a beautiful walk out there, and Charlie was going to get a speaker for our club, and I want to hold up a book that I don't know, can't quite see it. Is it? It's all fuzzy.
Oh,
anyway,
yeah,
it's called Secrets of the Oak Woodlands, Plants and Animals Among the California Oaks. We live in this habitat, oak woodlands, and if you want a beautiful read, easy read monographs on aspects of the oak woodlands, it's by Kate Marion-Child, and if you can just email me or message me. Anyway, it's a spectacular book. I read a monograph every morning, and it's been a great read. And thank you, Charlie, for trying to arrange having her, who lives in Mendocino, and also mentioned Sebastopol in this book for mistletoe. Anyway, give it a read if you can.
And I don't think Marty's with us, but look what Marty has as a blessing. Oh my God. Does Trey look like a fire plug? And I think he's up there skiing, last I saw.
Yeah.
Do you know where the black masks?
Whoops.
One you bought?
I put some in your car, I put some in my car.
I don't know what just happened there.
Blew up.
Is it back?
Yep.
Good. Hey. Michael.
This was what we had for, we went out crabbing with Bob Rogers and picked up a few, very few crabs. There were thousands of crab pots out and not very many crabs to be had, but it was our first crab of the season. Anybody that wants more crab, the Noon Club has got their crab feed on the 14th of February.
And crab's gotten expensive, so let's definitely buy those tickets while they're cheap.
Yeah.
Makes the tickets look cheap. That's great.
And yeah, that does look like fun. Glad you went out with them. And has anybody got something they wish to share that they have to be thankful for and grateful for? I see Brian Bauer.
Yeah, David, on the theme of what Professor Greg was talking about, I am so thankful for the teachers of our kids at El Molino. All three of our kids got into the best two public schools in the world, UCLA and UC Berkeley, and they're doing so well now. Like one just moved to New York City, the one that got lost in our parade. He just moved to New York City.
Oh, great.
A great project in the music industry. And my daughter is under the wing of John Webley doing desalination as a chemist. She's in Hawaii right now for 3 weeks on a project with them. And my oldest son, Julian, is he's chief analytic officer at a carbon credit counting company. And that company is doing phenomenally well. They're just going off the chart. So thank you, Greg, and all the teachers at Elmo. They say it couldn't be done. The principal at the time at Annalee said there's no way you could get an education like you can at Annalee if you let them go to El Molino, and we proved them wrong. So thanks, Greg.
It's really sweet, Brian. Thank you.
So $150 to $50 for each to Paul Harris.
Thank you very much. Yay! Ring the bell on that guy. And anybody else wish to
David?
make, yes?
David McCauley here.
Yes.
I'm grateful. Back in the spring, we had our auction, and I bid on a dozen or so bottles of French wine. And we cracked the last one open last week. And it comes from the Côte de Beaune region in south end of Burgundy. And it turned out, this is like a hidden masterpiece. The Lachine Encyclopedia says the best white wines in the world come from these vineyards. And so Mary and I enjoyed this, and I realized I'd gotten a steal. And so I'll pop a 100 into the club foundation, which would be appropriate, given that's what the auction was to support.
Thank you, Rod.
Yeah.
And a convenient way to do that. Thank you. That was lovely. A round of applause for that, man. Thank you, Rod. And glad you got to drink wonderful wine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So easy enough to go and make a donation right on the club website. Just pop in there, go to the top, lean over. We'll see a screenshot of that in a little while. So what's coming up on the calendar? Every Monday, the hiking social. You are seeing some really nice scenery and great company. Think about joining, and we've got a board meeting coming up on the 17th. As always, everybody in the club is invited. Just go on to the website calendar and hit that link. January 26th, International Committee meeting. Also January 26th, you can do a double header for Redwood Empire Food Bank. The 7th, Community Services, Dan Needham. The 8th, Membership Committee, Kathy Rogers. And the 12th, District Foundation Seminar. District Foundation Seminar might be interested interesting for you all because you learn everything from how we fundraise to how we spend the money, the grants and how grants work and all of those sorts of things. Lovely introduction or review. So you can sign up. You received an email on the 3rd of January. Go back because they are, I think, individual. And you can also go on the district website where you would be able to look at to hit a link there. Announcements.
I have one. So also for your calendars, January 29th, Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Our club, representatives from our club, the Noon Club, and Interact will clean up the landscaping around the Sebastopol post office on Main Street. So if you can do that, let me know so I can get a count of who can come help.
What's the date again, Dan?
Saturday, the 29th of January.
Great, thank you.
I'll
What
be there.
time? What time was that?
9 a.m. 9
Thank
a.m.
you.
And
So
if
are
we
you
get a
gonna-
good turnout, we'll be done well before noon would be my guess. Probably in a couple hours like we did with the trash pickup.
Well, I don't dare reverse, but you know what? I am going to say that in terms of gratitude, seeing photos of you guys distributing food to people and looking at all that we have done, that you have done, but we've done together in the last 6 months is very, very inspiring. And over the next couple of weeks, we're gonna review that. We're gonna have a look at what we did in the community. We're gonna have a look at what we did internationally, hear from the folks who were involved with that, and hear what we're doing for Service for Youth. When you hear it all consolidated and you see it, it is amazing. So $100 to Rotary Foundation, and I'm going to put it into the endowment fund. So I'm a believer in long-term. So on January 9th, this next week, we're going to hear from Dale Ann Knight, who is a famous Rotarian, formerly from our district, now living in northern Mexico in the town of Tlaquepaque near Guadalajara. And we'll be hearing about her travels and projects in Uganda. She had originally planned to come and join us in person, but due to recent pandemic events, she was warned off and didn't come. Now, good thing, right? Because she would have traveled here and maybe be sitting 20 feet from me, but she wasn't actually going to make it into the room. So here's a record. Unless somebody else has to say, I believe we might be ready for our speaker. So Charlie, is our speaker with us?
Yes.
She is Dr. Erica Steffi. And some of you may remember her. She spoke to us about COVID a year and a half ago in August of 2020. And I believe it may have been the longest meeting of my 9-year Rotary career here, because there were so many questions. We were in the midst of lockdown. Things were just a mess. There was a lot of uncertainty. And I asked her if she might consider making a repeat visit, because the situation today with COVID is quite different, but it's still really serious. And so she said, sure, she would do that. She's in Humboldt County today, where she serves part-time as a physician to Hospice of Humboldt. And she wrote a newsletter called Point of View 22 for everyday folks. She wrote that every Sunday during the worst of the pandemic, and now she does it kind of when it feels warranted. And I really like her letters. They provide an expert point of view. They're very succinct and useful in this sort of avalanche of news that we get. If you'd like to be added to her mail list, you can email her. I'll add her email address to the chat box there. She is an MD. She's board certified in internal medicine. She has an additional training in infectious diseases, and she maintained a practice for many, many years. She's been a practicing physician in Sonoma County for 30 years, but she had a practice in internal medicine and infectious diseases for years. She also had a travel clinic for years, which my family used going overseas. We knew exactly what we needed. And as I mentioned, she spends 2 weeks a month up in Humboldt, but she also maintains an integrative medicine practice here in Sebastopol. And to boot, she's a board certified physician in addiction medicine. So Erica, I really appreciate your coming back and talking to us once again, and take it away.
All righty. Good to be back. And I appreciate what you guys do. I hope you guys hear that enough. Also, since I talked to you last, I retired, which is what a lot of people did during COVID. So that gives me more time to read up and write these newsletters. So I'm here because you're interested in, oh man, I'm moving around on my screen. If you're interested, I'm sure, in Omicron, and that's what I'm going to talk about. And I'll be reading a little bit because I can't keep it all in my head in order. But just as a reminder, and this might not be important in 2 weeks from now, there is still Delta. And Delta is a really, really bad disease. If you're vaccinated, you'll do okay. But if you're not vaccinated, you could still die. So we can't forget about how bad things were previously. And if you're unvaccinated, that you're still at risk. So I just have to put that out there, because I think Omicron's getting this reputation for not being so bad. And I'm going to talk about that. It is bad. It's bad in places where people are not vaccinated. We're lucky that we are so vaccinated in this county and in the Bay Area. So what happened? What happened to make Omicron? Somebody in Africa, they're thinking now Botswana, they initially thought South Africa, and this is more a rumor, I haven't seen a paper on it, had a very immune compromised situation. And they believe whatever virus got into that person's body, and it hung out there for about 3 months. And because it was allowed to hang out there for about 3 months, it also mutated, because that's what this virus obviously does. And it mutated to a form that is so much different than what we've seen previously in Alpha and Beta and Delta, that some people are saying we should call it a completely different virus. So that remains to be seen. What changed is the spike protein, and I'm not going to try to be scientific, but you do have to understand these parts. The spike, when you look at the little emojis or whatever of the virus, those are the things that stick out. Those sticky outy things are the things that attach to your body and then cause illness. And those sticky outy things are also the things that the vaccines and your own body makes antibodies to. So if there, you can imagine if there's antibodies glued on top of that, it's not going to be able to do what it needs to do in attachment. That spike changed a lot, and that caused 2 things to happen. One, the antibodies from the previous vaccines don't work as well because they don't attach as well because the structure has changed. And I'll talk about booster shots in a bit. The other is that the way that spike protein functions actually has changed. There's a second and dominant way that it works in the body. And that second and dominant way is good news. I don't want to downplay that. That second and dominant way that it attaches to your body is that it prefers to attach in the upper mucosa. So that would be in the back of your mouth, in your nose, and down your bronchi, the bronchi being the tubes that lead to the air sacs. So it doesn't necessarily go to the air sacs as well, which means people don't get pneumonia. Maybe not 100% true, but for the most part, people don't get pneumonia. And if they don't get pneumonia, this stuff doesn't go in your bloodstream. It doesn't go in your bloodstream. It doesn't cause infection in other organs. And you don't end up in the ICU having to be on a tilt table and possibly dying. Additionally, now we have the vaccines, and even though they're not perfect in making antibodies necessarily to this weird new virus, they help a lot. And last night I was doing more reading. I mean, this is ever evolving. Tomorrow I could probably say something different. I was of the impression that, oh, Omicron's pretty easy. There's a guy in San Francisco in the emergency room that yesterday had a headline that he hasn't had to intubate anybody in the emergency room during this surge. And you start to relax and think, well, that's pretty cool. But then I got online with the docs from all over the country, and people are still in the ICU and people are still dying, and these are unvaccinated adults. So I think we have a bit of a skewed view, and I just want to remind you of that. So this new virus, Omicron, will attach to your nose, throat, and bronchi, and you'll get symptoms of severe nasal congestion, sore throat, kind of a hacky cough. So it's subtle. You know, when you get pneumonia, you can't breathe and you might cough up some globs of stuff. Bronchitis is different. You just kind of hack and hack and hack, and it causes bronchitis. It causes bronchitis in kids that it's pretty severe, and it can cause bronchitis in adults who have breathing problems, and that is a problem for them. But for the rest of us, it feels terrible, but it's not going to bring us to the hospital. And a lot of people, and now unfortunately I've talked to a lot of people who've gotten Omicron, and I bet every single one of you knows somebody who's had it at this point. But they talk about it's not a mild flu, that their body is very achy, that they're in bed, they're very tired. But again, they're not short of breath and they're not going to the hospital. Let's see. So boosting, and these are hard concepts. I'm trying to do my best, but these are the concepts. You got vaccinated in the beginning, and that was wonderful. And you made antibodies against Delta and all those previous variants, and that was also wonderful. What you also did, and nobody talks about, is you have like a second way of fighting, and that's the T cell system. Nobody talks about it, but you activated that. And that doesn't go away like antibodies go away. That stays, and that can save people's lives. So anybody who had 2 shots, good on you. If you have friends who are afraid to do it, they really should get those 2 shots. What's happening with the boosters, other than people who are immune compromised, very old, have bad immune systems, have cancer, if you know somebody has that, they need 3 shots. 3 shots, the third one's not a booster, it's part of the series. But if you get this booster, what happens is the antibodies you made previously kind of wore out, weren't used, went away-ish. And then if you get this booster, the antibodies all come back. So you can imagine if you got your booster 2 weeks ago, you've got lots of antibodies. And then if you get Omicron, even though they don't stick perfectly, they stick, if there's a lot of them, they stick enough and they really help. So that's great news. So how long should you have had a booster, or how short a time until now should you had a booster? Nobody knows. Nobody's saying. At most 4 months, maybe 2 months, maybe 1 month. So what about getting a booster right now? I have my opinion on it, and that is not the usual opinion, and you can have your opinion. I don't care. But the booster, if you were to get it today, takes 2 weeks to work. It will not, I mean, every day is a better day, but it takes 2 weeks to work. So I wonder if it's worth going out to a doctor's office or a hospital where there's a lot of Omicron going on right now to get that booster, because we're in the surge. I'll talk about in a sec, and then it'll come down, and then there won't be a surge, most very likely. And that's not because Erica thinks she knows the future, it's because that's how surges go. I mean, you can kind of look at the graphs and figure it out for yourself. All right. So remember that Omicron is one of the most infectious viruses that has ever been introduced to mankind. It's 100 times more infectious than that first one that came out in 2020. And you can remember in the beginning of 2020, how we were told, don't go near people, 6 feet apart, wear a mask, and we were just appalled. This is 100 times more infectious. So basically, if you're in a room with somebody with Omicron, you will get it. If you have a cloth mask on, you will get it. If you have a surgical mask on, I still think you might get it. If you really know there's somebody in the room and you have to be in the room, you probably need an N95 mask and a face shield. It is that infectious. And that's what's happening right now. It's so infectious that without any mitigation of the transfer of the virus, that one person will infect 10 people. And that's super high. So you don't have a chance if you're going to just walk around normally. You will get it. And people are getting it not walking around normally. So what do? Well, you can hide, and actually, you know, we're all against that now. We're all tired of it. We don't want to do it anymore. We want to be real people. I totally get that. But the hiding might not be for such a long time. I mean, just look at these peaks from Europe and South Africa and even Washington, D.C. They go up, 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 and tremendous amount of infection. And then they go down, down, down. So if you're at risk, maybe you ought to hide. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. But the other thing is testing, and it's not been made very clear, and they haven't been very available. And that's a big mistake problem that we have in the US, but that's the way it is. If you are going to be with a new person that you don't know their background, you should test them somehow. Right now, the county, if you wanted to make an appointment with the county, it'll be a week before you can get your test. So you can plan ahead, but if you're sickish or whatever, that's not going to help. So you have the at-home tests, which are hard to get, but you are able to get them. For instance, if nobody's sick right now and you don't need one right now, why don't you order some right now? And then in a week, hopefully you'll have some. Also in the newsletter from yesterday, and I know some of you guys have it, there's an app that tells you where tests are available, either online or in the store. And I used it because I couldn't believe it, because some 14-year-old kid made this app, and it notified me when the Binex test, which I like, was available, and I ordered it. So it's not impossible to get these tests. So I'll encourage you to get these tests. If you feel sick, or somebody in your family, your bubble, whatever, feels sick, you should do them. And if you're having somebody over that you just can't not have over, you probably ought to test them. Now, one test alone in somebody who feels perfectly fine may not find Omicron. On the other hand, yesterday, and that's how fast things are evolving, there was a paper that said if you're infectious, so enough virus in your nose to spread it to somebody else, and you do a test, the test will probably find it. So there's no downside to doing a test. If you want to be even more sure, have them do a test 24 hours before they come to your house, and then right when they walk through the door. So that's the best I can do about home tests. And I can answer questions about that later if you want. And then where are we in the surge right now? Well, you're really aware that Sonoma County is in the midst of it, and we have not peaked. Washington, D.C. has peaked. You can look at their graph, and they're coming back down. And so what I do is just do really simple stuff. I take the South African graph and the graph from Mexico and the UK and Washington, D.C., and I just superimpose it on where we are. And New York City is supposed to peak like tomorrow or something like that. And they were, I don't know, a week ahead of us. It's a little hard to tell, because when we get data, like in the newspaper or other sources, that data is pretty much a week old. You have to remember that it didn't happen that day. It had to be run. It had to be tabulated. It had to be confirmed. It had to be published. It's a week old. So we're definitely on the upswing, but I'm guessing 1 or 2 more weeks of peaking, and then it'll go down. So the moment it goes down, it's still a lot of positive tests, right? But then at least, you know, you can hold your breath for the next 2 to 4 weeks before you can go out with some certainty that you're not going to get infected. See if there's anything else. Oh, the hospitalizations are of the unvaccinated, and unfortunately, some of the unvaccinated are our kids. And so if you look at the data of the hospitalizations in New York City, 50% of those people were kids. The little kids get the same thing the adults do, but their tubes, you know, where the air goes down, are much, much smaller. And so any swelling in there causes more problem, like croup. You might have heard of that before. So they have to go to the hospital. They have to get medicine to decrease that swelling, either fight the virus or get steroids or whatever the pediatricians say to do. And then they get better. So even though our kids, our small kids are going to the hospital, they're doing okay. And they get out in less than a week. But that's what's happening. So the kids are going to the hospital, and then the unvaccinated are going to the hospital. And not as many are dying, which is great. Not as many are going in the ICU, which is great, but they're still going to the hospital. And you've heard all of this before, but when our hospitals are full, then people with heart attacks and so forth can't manage to get the care they need. And that's why you also don't want to be infected and need to get health care right now. So sitting tight for a few weeks would help everybody. Let's see if there's anything else that I wanted to say. I don't think so. Yeah, I think the thing that struck me most when I was preparing for this, and I'm trying to prepare a newsletter just on Omicron, is that we don't know yet. I'm getting so many different viewpoints on how serious this is. And I think people really want this to be mild, really want this to be better. And it is more mild than Delta for sure. It is an easier bug to get than Delta for sure. Delta killed people. It was a terrible, terrible disease. And Delta is around, like I said, but Omicron being so infectious, and Delta is really infectious, but Omicron is that much more infectious than Delta. The idea is that it'll superimpose itself and Delta will die out. If it will die out forever, nobody knows. Oh yeah, and they are, you probably saw the headlines yesterday, they are making Omicron specific vaccine. So I guess the smart people are thinking that Omicron is going to hang out. And then the next season, and I think we're going to start seeing that this is seasonal. So think flu. When does flu hit? Thanksgiving and Christmas. So the next season, they're going to have an Omicron vaccine available. Moderna is making an Omicron flu vaccine, which I actually think is kind of silly, but in a few years, that might be a smart idea. But either way, we're getting a better vaccine than we have now. We just got to get through this piece. And then hopefully there will be some control. So I'm honestly very optimistic. I just don't want people to be overly optimistic and do stupid things right now. And I think we need to wait for the data to come in to know what's really true. But in the long, long run, this is good news. And I will answer questions.
I have a question. Once you've been exposed, how long does it take to manifest itself?
That's a really good question. And I'm going to say stuff and I might be wrong, but I'll tell you what I tell people. First off, if you're vaccinated and recently boosted, you might get symptoms before you even are able to transmit virus. And that surprised me at first, but it's because you can respond so well. 24 hours would be the soonest. 5 days would be the longest. I was way tending towards 2 days and 3 days, which is what I read, and makes more sense to me because it's so super infectious. It so makes babies so fast that it just takes over. And my mind still wants to go to the 2 to 3 days, but I have to be honest with you, the people I've talked to who've gotten this, it's starting to sound like 5 days. And I went, that's not right. They must have Delta, but I've heard it too much. So it may be up to 5 days.
Dr. Staff, if one booster is good, is 2 boosters better?
Yeah, I mean, yes, but, and this is what I'm having a hard time with. So sure, go get your booster today. So where are you gonna go? You're gonna go to a place where there's a lot of people. Should you be with a lot of people today? I don't think so. And then your booster takes 2 weeks before it works. You know, and every day is a better day, but it really doesn't work for 2 weeks. Where are we gonna be in this surge in 2 weeks? So I'm not telling everybody to run and go get their booster or even their second booster, which Israel did. They did it at month 4, and it's month 4 for some people. But even my best friends with cancer or whatever, I'm telling them to stay home. But if you wanted to go and get it, I can't fault you for your thinking, you know?
Great.
Yeah.
John,
You're on mute.
What about mixing vaccines? You might have answered that. I missed it.
No, I didn't talk about it this time around. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine, it has a lot of problems, and I wouldn't give it to a young person. But when I was giving out vaccines, just to get the hesitant to have one and done. I kept saying that, one and done. And some of my very hesitant friends got the one and done. You don't get a second Johnson & Johnson, you get another one. And what happens is it boosts that T-cell immunity I was talking about, that second line of defense, which is really important long-term, and it makes more antibodies. Some people have found, and I believe it to be true, that if you got, like, for instance, 2 Pfizers, and then you got a Moderna, you get a better response than if you had 3 Pfizers. Or you had 2 Modernas and a Pfizer. I can't explain that because they're almost essentially the same vaccine, but that's what they're saying. And having said that, if you're vaccinated and you do get Omicron, they say I'm saying this carefully, but almost bulletproof for Delta, not for Omicron, because our system is imperfect compared to vaccines to make antibodies. But somehow, if you already had the vaccine and you stimulate it one more time with a natural immunity, you're really good for Delta and the ones previous.
John Rex had his hand up.
Yeah, I'm curious about your opinion about at West County High School, the Omicron variant is spreading very quickly. Our vice principal told us yesterday that we should assume, teachers should assume that we are exposed, we have been exposed. They did give out tests, but I'm wondering if, in your opinion, that we should close school for a week or 2.
Yeah, don't get me in trouble, okay?
No,
but
I don't want to close
understand.
school. I want to be very clear. I don't want to close school because
I don't understand. I don't understand sending a bunch of people together in the middle of a surge, especially unvaccinated ones or partially vaccinated ones. I don't get it. I mean, it's just wait 2 weeks. And to bolster my opinion, I look at UC. All the UCs are closed till the 31st of January. So I don't think it's that hard. The other thing is flu is, what I'm very conversant in, and I even lectured on the flu pandemic. And in the end, we all figure out that the flu gets spread by kids. So why set us up? I don't understand. I think well, I do. I mean, I know the kids are super suffering, but to make them sick and have them come home, I don't really think that helps them. So.
Thank you.
Nick Randall was next.
Erica, I wonder if you have any opinion on the relative merits of these antigen tests, one versus another. Any brands that are better than others?
I wrote that down. The first thing I said about that in one of my newsletters, which I hopefully printed out, I'm trying to find it, is any test is better than no test. I mean, they wouldn't be on the market if they didn't kind of work. And then 1, 2. Yeah. So in yesterday's newsletter, I said that one of the docs from Boston, aka Harvard, shared what their affiliate hospital is saying is okay, aka I'm forgetting, MGH. So they say the Abbott test, the Acon Flow Flex, I've seen all these, so they're out and about. The Quiddle Quick or Quidel Quick. The BD Veritor, I don't know it. The Intrivo Diagnostic, I don't know that part of it, but it says On Go. I've seen that on Amazon. iHealth, that's the one I could get from Amazon, and it's good. Illume, Orasure. Orasure is the one that does your spit instead of your nose. And Access Bio Care Start, I don't know that one. Also, there's a link in that last newsletter to the New York Times article that talked about it as well. But again, whatever you can get is good. And the other thing I kind of emphasize is, I'm sure you all want tests, but how about you share your test and then your neighbor gets their test and then they pay you back in a test or something like that, because timing is everything on this.
Thank you.
And need them. Unmute.
You mentioned N95 masks, other masks, KN95.
Yeah. So anything that's NIOSH, NIOSH, that's in Amazon. And my husband, who's great for me because he knows no medical stuff, although he thinks he's a doctor at this point, but he was trying to find those N95s and he got on Amazon and he goes, what's this NIOSH? And I go, that's NIOSH. That's good. That's what you want to look for. And they said, well, this one's better because it says viral, antiviral. I go, that's just words, you know, so they'll paste all these extra words on there and make you pay more money. But you want NIOSH. And then the other thing that people really don't realize, and I do realize because of just what I've done for so many years, is when we use these in the hospital, we had to be fit tested. They had to fit our face right. And what they would do is they would put on an N95 mask, put a hood over us and seal it, and then stick some obnoxious smelling stuff in there. And if you could smell it, it didn't fit right. And you either had to make an adjustment or you had to get a different mask size for your face. That's how tight it needs to be. And as an example, a few weeks ago, I was at the club, which I don't think was dumb 2 weeks ago. And it was this huge, huge area with maybe 3 people in it. So again, I don't think I was being dumb, but maybe I was. Anyway, about 4 feet away, somebody was cleaning one piece of equipment. And I had the surgical mask on pretty good. And I could smell it. And I said, well, this is not going to work. You know, so if you put it on, make sure it fits and make sure it's not pleasant to breathe, because that is what these poor nurses and poor respiratory therapists are going through 12 hours a day at the hospital.
Into Cinque.
Say it again, please.
Hi.
Cinque is going to unmute.
Oh, okay.
I've been sick for 2 weeks. It just lingers and lingers. I did get tested, the PCR test. Can you speak to like false negatives? I mean, well, I was sure I had it.
Yeah.
I had every symptom except fever.
Yeah. So there's a lot of posts right now. I'm in a physicians group and they're regular people too. And they say stuff like this too. And the response people would say is, this is respiratory virus time, you know, so you probably have something else. PCRs are really good. So if it was 2 days at least after symptom onset, I would trust the PCR. I mean, you can test again and make sure and so forth, but that's not sounding like COVID to me. There's flu, there's respiratory syncytial virus, which kids get. There's just a ton of viruses out there right now.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jay, you've got your hand up?
Bill Sauber does.
You do too, but I'll take the question. If I heard you right, I thought you said that you didn't think it was a good idea for Moderna to be coming out with a flu vaccine.
No, they're putting Omicron with flu is what the president said. She's trying to be fancy. And I think eventually that's a good idea because people don't want 2 shots. But the thing about flu is you have to guess right. And,
Yeah,
you know, it just makes it that much more difficult. So I don't think that's where we want to head for the very first season, but you know, whatever. I'm not a business person.
Do they already know what the anticipated flu will
No.
be next year?
No, they usually figure that out May or June, and they get
That's
that
what I-
from the Southern Hemisphere. So, and they
That's-
guessed wrong this year, unfortunately. So it's really hard right now because there's not much flu because we all have our masks on. So the guessing is worse.
Even with flus, even when they guess wrong, you still get some protection, correct?
Yeah, I believe, yes, you do. I mean, you just don't get as less sick as you usually do. So it's definitely worth getting a flu shot, even with a miss. And it's not just one variant that they put in there. They usually put 3 of one type and one of the B type. So you get 4. So you may not get the main one, you might get the other one, and then you're protected or more protected. And that's the other thing I just wanted to emphasize. Vaccines are not like a shield. You don't run around like a knight in armor. It's like your body's prepared and it's going to do the best it can. And if you're 95 years old, you know, you're not going to do as well as somebody who's 30 years old. I mean, you laugh, but I had somebody called me on Sunday and said my 95-year-old mother just turned up positive. And I went, you need to go. And this is the thing I forgot to talk about. You need to go get her some Paxlovid, which is that new medicine that works, and it works super well for COVID, but we just don't have very much of it. And she wasn't that sick. I said, she's 95. You know, you can't trust that. So they finally did. It was very hard because she's probably one of the first people in the county to get it, and nobody knew how, but it happened. So it's possible.
Let me interrupt. Dr. Steffi, we're very grateful for what you do as a service to the community and for your coming to visit us today. In the interest of time, we need to officially end the meeting, but I have a question. Are you perhaps willing to stay if other people have questions?
Yeah, sure.
Because I see that there are. Well, that's wonderful. So let's move towards the end of our meeting. I'm going to share screen and see if that works. Maybe. And
we see your screen. That's
well, and where did this go? Exit. Well, that's not going to work.
Let's just sing a song, David.
Yeah, well, I know, but we also
sing a
have
song. Let's go later.
Michael McLaughlin. Are you ready with a joke?
Well, you might call it that. So the question is, how do you stop Canadian bacon from curling in your frying pan? You take
Turn
away
on the
the little
heat.
brooms.
Cute.
There you go.
Melt the ice. That's right.
Say again, Michael, what was the answer?
You take away their little brooms so they can't curl.
Jack Griffin would get that one. That's a Jack Griffin joke.
Very good.
And then now is the time, or sometime today, please navigate back to the main screen of, or the homepage of Rotary Club of Sebastopol Sunrise. Go up to the top, and there's 2 little green tags that you can get into. I was going to show them to you, but I can't get that thing back. And those are donate to Rotary Club of Sebastopol, and most importantly and relevant today, we pay our meeting fees, which are $10 per person. Just go up there, and Jim modified the website, so we've got another little tag. Go up there, tag it, contribute $10, and keep us all rolling, because our costs don't go away. In fact, we're about to pay rent on the hall that we're not using, but it's still there for us. So if you would do that, that would be very kind. Dr. Steffi, grateful for this. We're going to make a contribution in your name of a library book to the Sebastopol Union School District Libraries that is oriented towards inclusionary sorts of stories that students can read and share. Joe, can you give us a song?
Let's go. Happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails to you. Keep smiling on then. Happy trails to you till we meet again.
Before you go, thank you very much, Charlie Judson, for putting in the chat the links that we can use to sign up for a regular correspondence from Dr. Steffi, so we can stay abreast, and also the location for those find a test things. Those are both in the chat, and maybe Michael Fells, we should put that in an email distribution to get everybody there. So thank you for those of us who have to go. See you later. And